Becky yells as she enters the restaurant that she knows the owner and that we should grant her and her pals access to the VIP table, which is designated for celebrities. The problem is that I do not know who this woman is, and I own the restaurant. To test what would happen, though, I feigned cooperation. One of the girls questioned me throughout the dinner if she believed that my life was useless because I work as a server. I made the decision that I was getting my retribution at that point. This is what I did. Click the bell to enable notifications after subscribing to Night Diaries Hub on YouTube. All of this took place between Christmas and New Year's. In the 1970s, my grandparents founded a restaurant after moving to Canada from Italy. My parents took over the restaurant after they died, and they developed and enlarged it throughout the years. I started working at the restaurant when I was 15 years old. My parents grew older and eventually retired, moving to Florida for the winters as snowbirds. A few years ago, they handed over the restaurant to me, but they kept a tiny percentage of the business as a side source of income in addition to their savings. I essentially updated the old establishment as soon as I took over. I revamped the eatery, altered the logo, contacted regional and national publications to place advertisements, and invited bloggers, vloggers, food critics, and others. At first, everything was really slow, and I started to fear that the loan I took out to accomplish all of this was the worst thing I had ever done in my life and that I had destroyed 3 generations of family businesses. However, after a while, it started to work. Additionally, a local, rather well-known YouTuber highlighted us in one of his videos, which attracted more viewers and reviews. Eventually, we were receiving 5 to 10 times as much business as we typically do, even on Mondays. We developed into a popular location for important events, and celebrities frequently visited. I also made arrangements for notable, high-profile clients to come and prepare meals for our visitors on specific evenings. This was rather expensive. We were therefore extremely busy throughout the holidays. People would now need to book reservations in July in order to secure a table in December. It took years for this process to reach its current state. I do not just sit in the back office when things get crazy. Whatever needs to be done, I am on the ground. Even if it means mopping the floors, busting tables, or greeting visitors. However, on other evenings when we have well-known visitors or events, I wear a jacket and take charge. A group of 6 women enter one evening. The gang leader appeared to be in her mid-20s, while 5 of them appeared to be in their early 20s. My best guess was that she was the older sister of one of the other 4 girls, or even an older sorority sister of a freshman in college. As they approached, Queen Bee Becky was assuring the baby Beckys that this location is great, the food is great, and there might even be celebrities here. I was greeting them at the door. She approached me and said she wanted a table for 6. Sure, I said. Could you please provide the reservation's name? This is true for many high-profile restaurants, and I have been doing that lately as well, she added, glancing at me. However, I had no idea who this woman was, and she surely never spoke to me about any of this. I understood that she was attempting to enter without a reservation, but she chose the worst person she could have to do it with. She proceeded to ask one of the other girls to snap a picture of me after I told her. She will talk to the owner and make sure that by the end of the week, I am either getting fired or cleaning the toilet. The other girls who were following her said things like, I do not know if they were with her or if they really believed that she knew the owner. Continually pointing, basically trying to put me down, Queen Bee Becky continued. Obviously you are not someone here because if you were, you would know who I am and never even try to tell me anything other than yes or of course. She was always trying to obtain that table and minimize me. I had 3 possibilities at this point because I felt like I had had a hard day. First and foremost, I confront her about all of this and inform her that I am the owner. Second, I simply hand her the table and walk away. Thirdly, I give Becky, the queen bee, and her tiny henchman a lesson. Option 3 was my choice. I handed her one of the 3 tables we keep free in case a celebrity shows up, and I grinned at her. It does occur occasionally. I apologized to her for everything, and she was correct. Just giving her the table would be easier. I also informed her that the first 3 drinks would be free. I seated them down and served them myself. They sat down and I said, we will return it to you before you depart, but we do require one of your IDs and credit cards to keep on file. In addition to giving me her cards, Queen Becky informed me that tonight was her night. I took their orders, gave them their complimentary beverages, and informed them that there would be a delay in the meal because of how busy we are tonight. The complimentary rounds of drinks were what all the girls were thinking about and concerned about. Even after ordering all 3 rounds, they were still without food. They gave me the meanest attitude I have ever encountered since they placed their purchase, calling me at the end of the day to ask me to check on it. I asked if they wanted any more drinks and said I will check on it. By the time the appetizers arrived, they had placed orders for 2 more rounds. They had only eaten salads after drinking on an empty stomach for the majority of the evening, so they were sloshed at this time. Drinks are ordered as additional food is delivered. I did not charge these females for sitting on our VIP table, which alone cost many $1,000s, but they were unaware of it. With the exception of the first 3 rounds, I did bill them for all of the incredibly pricey cocktails they had over the evening. Furthermore, the menus were different from the standard ones because, as was already indicated, they were seated at a VIP table. The prices are not listed on these menus. In the restaurant industry, it is a trade secret. Additionally, it offered some more upscale menu items like black caviar meals, white truffle, and specially imported West Coast oysters, among others. I honestly started to second-guess my actions at one point during the evening, believing that I could be pushing things too far with these poor females. Some things encouraged me throughout the night, even though they might not know any better. For example, one of the baby Beckys asked me if I felt like my life was meaningless because all I ever became was a waitress. Additionally, one of the other staff members informed me that they were talking to me about how to F so much that they could do this whenever they wanted, and I would know to always offer them a seat. They also said, he is cute, but I would never date a waiter like him, which I heard. He is such a softie. I continued their life lesson because I heard a lot of comments like that during the evening. Each female had accrued a bill of between $600 and $700 by the conclusion of the evening. The total amount on the bill, including tax and tip, was $5,232.23 when I gave it to Queen Becky. I have never witnessed someone get sober so fast. After chatting and laughing with her pals, she started to cry almost uncontrollably. Immediately, she beckoned me over and inquired as to if this was a joke. After taking a glance at the bill, I remarked, "Oh, I am sorry. I will get you the right amount." Once more, she was ecstatic to think that she had received someone else's bill, called me a terrible moron, and then proceeded to speak with her pals. She went completely nuts when I returned to give her the right bill. She did not order anything, so I merely asked her if there was something wrong with this charge. In a state of astonishment, she and the girls combed over every word of the bill, including the first few paragraphs that read complimentary and show the original 3 rounds. After that, they pulled out their phones and went over everything again, line by line, adding it all up for the 100th time. Queen Bee was so shaken that she just said, "Give me a moment, I have to go to the bathroom." I kind of subtly reminded her that we had her ID and credit card, even though I was afraid she could pull a dine and dash and leave the baby Beckys with the bill. I assumed she was about to run out of money, without being overt. She returns 10 minutes later with fresh makeup, clearly crying, and claims that the food and drinks were terrible. She goes on to demand that I, at the very least, cut the bill in half, with the understanding that the baby Beckys will help, despite her initial claim that the evening would be on her. She then brought up her relationship with the owner once more, as though a light bulb had just gone off in her head, as though it would further persuade me to have the amount. With a suppressed smile, I informed her that I was unable to alter the bill. She pulls out her phone and shows me a string of texts in which someone calls my restaurant's name, followed by the word owner. I essentially realized what she was doing in the restroom, and she most likely changed one of the other Becky minions' contact names and erased the previous text to begin this new script. I informed her it was not the owner's cell phone number after reading them and clicking on the contact details. "He has many phones for business," she responded, "so you obviously do not know all of his numbers." I suggested to her that I would knock 50% off the fee if we called him and he agreed. She responded by ranting and screaming until the few customers who were left started to glance over, and I realized it was time to finish the argument. In a less accommodative tone, I told her to stop being such a trump. "You have never been here before, you do not know the owner, and if you continue to rant, I will call the police." Her attitude shifted, and she was making every effort to protect herself. I responded to her feeble retort by saying that my grandparents started this restaurant, my family has been operating it for generations, I have worked here for nearly my whole life, I am the sole proprietor of this establishment, and I have never seen or heard of you before. I also made no promises to a stranger that I have never met before tonight. Many of the Beckys were frozen, unsure of how to respond. Queen Bee was crying. I gave you the table you requested, one of these tables that were reserved especially for upscale customers, and I offered you 3 rounds of free drinks. If you do not pay your bill, I will contact the police and give them your ID, I added. Becky signed the bill while crying, and the many Beckys got out their purses to give her whatever money they had, which was probably a couple $100, with the understanding that they would repay her further. 2 days later, a man who is furious enters my restaurant and requests to talk to one of my bartenders. He waited for me for a solid 30 minutes because I was working in the back office. Queen Bee was beside him, keeping her head down, and he was her father. I showed him the highlights of the security cameras in my office, which had particularly high-quality audio because they were in the VIP area, which we had to maintain accurate records of due to previous unconnected events. I therefore presented him the majority of it, including their directives and remarks. After everything was over, he yelled at her as they walked away, storming out with her. The initial bill I gave them, the one that excluded the $130 oysters, remains framed on my desk, but I have not seen or spoken to either of them since. In addition, contrary to popular belief, I did not lose a lot of overhead on the table during the 3 rounds. I did not lose anything because the table was initially meant to be empty and I did not anticipate making more money from the overhead for the food and other beverages than I did from losing the first 3 rounds. Was I the trump, then, now that you know everything? Beyond the money, the attempt to force her way into a table, and the attempt to avoid paying the bill, the most shocking thing about what the Beckys did in this case was probably their insight into their worldview, which was expressed in the single comment about the original poster's worthlessness. According to the original poster, he was about to abandon his entire plan of retaliation when one of the baby Beckys asked him if he felt that his life was meaningless because all he ever did was work as a server. It must be among the most insane, entitled viewpoints we have ever seen on this station. Even while it may not be as exciting and wild as some of the other items we have seen, it is sickening that that is how she views the world. There is absolutely nothing that is less than having a career of any kind that might not be as lucrative as those of the individuals she knows in her life. This is a common occurrence in some occupations, such as janitorial work. People who non-jokingly believe they are better than janitors because they are not janitors themselves irritate me. Being a janitor has nothing wrong with it. I find that viewpoint incomprehensible, but in this instance, she not only feels that way, but she also wants to make fun of him for working as a waiter, or at least that is what she believes he is doing. Additionally, there is another thing. I am relieved that story had a somewhat satisfying conclusion, with the father trying to intervene and turn everything around before departing more enraged with the daughter than the restaurant owner. The fact that he is watching the folks seated at this table is the one aspect of this that somewhat unnerved me. If I knew that a restaurant was capturing my audio, I probably would not go there. In any case, I am glad the Opie's problem worked out, but tell me how you would have responded if this had been your business and these were your patrons. You should also tell me whether Trump is a Trump supporter and why. Using Night Diaries Hub to force our friends to attend our wedding with a puppet theme? My fiancé is 26 years old, and I am 25 years old. It was at college that we first met. We met in a puppetry class while participating in the performing arts program at our school. We created our own puppets in class. At first, we flirted and talked to each other in class using my Hatboy and my fiancée's Daisy, who was better at names. We fell in love, and in a sense, we also thought Hatboy and Daisy were in love. We continued to use Hatboy and Daisy years after we graduated, both at home and at our neighborhood theater, which is pretty well known, where we utilize expensive Muppet-style puppets to stage puppet performances. We came to the decision to include Hatboy and Daisy in the ceremony while we were organizing our wedding. Since the beginning, they have been a part of us, and it felt natural. The notion that our wedding should be entirely officiated by puppets and that our wedding party would consist of puppets and our closest puppeteer friends came to us when we invited our entire theater ensemble of puppeteers. We believe it will produce amazing images. We are unsure if we are the trumps or not at this point. All of our guests are required to utilize puppets and participate as well. We have requested that everyone buy professional puppets of a good caliber, but not quite high caliber, to use during our wedding as gifts. We eliminated all uncertainty by pointing them in the direction of other vendors, some of whom had incredibly interesting possibilities. Depending on the type of details and other items they desired, everyone might reasonably anticipate spending between $200 and $600. Additionally, we would like everyone to wear their puppets for the duration of the wedding and celebration. Every puppet we are proposing is one-handed, controllable and mountable. Just as all of our human guests are intended to be guests at the wedding, so too are the puppets. Let us just state that a large number of people are unhappy. This is totally irrational, according to my wife's sister, both of our parents, and relatives on both sides. How they will eat and drink is a concern for them. What kind of dance will they perform? I am not sure why they are complaining, as you can dance without hands. While we obviously do not expect individuals to carry their puppet in the restroom, we would really like to insist on it wherever else. Additionally, we ensured that every dish was finger food. Many cocktail tables will be available for patrons to set down their beverages. We even made sure that the dinner's food was portioned so that it could be eaten with a fork in bite-sized portions without requiring a knife. We firmly believe that this would be a memorable day. We only get to do it once, and we hope that everyone who attends will remember it for a long time. We find it difficult to accept that they would not have a great time once they got there. So are we the trumps for asking for our one special day in what we believe to be a ridiculous but harmless and acceptable way? I wonder if it would be different if they supplied the puppets themselves, but this is one of those cases where it seems like the overwhelming majority of individuals claim to be the trumps. Because not everyone is in the same financial situation, it can be difficult to expect people to pay at least $150 for puppets simply to attend your wedding. It starts at $200 and goes up to $600. Consequently, $700 would still be spent if a family of 4, a wife, a husband, and 2 children, purchased the least expensive puppets available. That, in my opinion, is the only significant obstacle here. For everyone else who is whining about how inconvenient the wedding would be and all that, remember that it is their special day. The only thing they desire is this. I would probably support them if it were not for the financial need. Because they are being honest and stating, hey, this is what we want to do for our wedding, they can at least let people know in advance if they do not like it, and it is not a money problem, rather, it is a lack of enjoyment. Alternatively, they could explain to the bride and groom why they are unable to attend. It is not like the person will be nude or not require shoes or hair services, as someone pointed out, and that is not even including all the other wedding-related costs. It would have been entertaining to go nude and cover up a particular area with a hand alone as a man. What would you do, then, if your friends invited you to attend their puppet-required wedding for you and your family of 4, where the cost would range from $800 to $2,900? What would you say to them? Tell me below if you are a Trump supporter and why. Because I play lacrosse for evil, Night Diaries Hub? According to my wife, I am acting like a Trump fan. I prefer to maintain a very nice front lawn. I am not obsessive about it, but let us just say that I would not ever receive lawn care warnings if I lived in a homeowners association. One of my neighbors poops her dog on my lawn. Dogs do this, therefore it is not a problem. Other dog walkers likewise let their dogs relieve themselves, then quickly pick it up, go a few homes to the bus stop, and dispose of it in the garbage, or, if they are walking the opposite direction, take it somewhere else. However, this particular neighbor only picks it up when someone is keeping an eye on her. I can see when this occurs from my workplace because I have a doorbell camera. I have been returning her property for the past few weeks utilizing a homemade feces flinger and my old lacrosse abilities. I could have been too excited and not always landed on her grass. It occasionally lands on her home, once on her pavement, and once on the roof. As previously mentioned, my wife believes that I am acting like a Trump, but am I the Trump? A handmade flinger for poop? Actually, he is flinging the excrement back? If you actually think about it, you are just giving her back what she owns. She likely does not realize that the other person is aware that her dog is urinating on the grass, so she interprets it as this crazy guy hurling excrement at me at random. Tell me what you would do in this situation, who is right and who is wrong, whether you are a Trump supporter or not, and why. Be sure to click the bell to enable notifications when you subscribe. Use the playlist at the top of the description to listen to every story in this series. Use the best music available the next time you broadcast. To find copyright-free music for your stream, search for Cream of the Stream on Spotify or any other music provider you use. It is cost-free. The best of the best. Anyway, many thanks for listening. I will see you all again soon.